Hey, it's Friday night, and we've been gone for 3 weeks. Hope you haven't forgotten about us. This is episode 30 of the Fancast for WCBS. Joining me tonight, the guest, Mr. Justin Beck.
What up, everyone?
And from New York, our favorite looking little pro. Ellen P, did you fall asleep?
Oh, I'm done spaying neutering my pet.
We can't hear you, man. You're going to have to speak up. All right, so we've had a nice hiatus. We had
Oh, me or you or Justin?
you. So we had a nice hiatus. We had various reasons why we didn't.
Might be my signal. It's acting up again.
Yeah,
You're too busy spitting and neutering your pets.
Yeah, he is. I was out of town. We had people busy, and we got even tonight. Eric Ward is having to chauffeur his stepson around, so he's not able to make it. So we invited Justin to come on over. So has everybody listened to episode whatever it was of WCBS? What was that? Episode 109.
Oh, 9. Yeah. Yes, I have during work, like usual.
Yeah, I finally got to the timeline this afternoon. I realized it's like, oh my goodness, I haven't even listened to the whole thing. I started listening to it last night. I've shot I don't know how many beer reviews yesterday and was enjoying all the beers. And before I knew it, it was midnight, and I was like, okay, well, that kind of thing that the episode was out. And it had only been out like 40 minutes, and it was like 1,000 comments or something. It was ridiculous. Or I guess not that many. There's only 180 on there now. But it had a lot of views, and I think it was like 47 comments or something. And then I ended up, Nick told me that they were still online, so I ended up chatting with them till about 2 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, I got to go to bed now. So I was up by 8:30 or something because of other noises, and so I ended up, it's been a very strange day for me when I think it's only like 10, it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So anyway, glad to be back, glad to be recording, and hopefully we can keep this 60 to 90 minutes. I don't think we have too many things to discuss, but I don't think we're going to do a 2-hour extravaganza unless you guys really feel like going that far. So, LP, you started, you had some piece of, I guess you could call it news about what you wanted to talk about, some lineup for Evil 2018 or something.
Yeah. So, just to start off, before I go any further, was checking out the subscriber count for the main show. Over 18,000.
Yep.
So, we're probably gonna hit that 20,000 mark anytime soon. Very impressive, guys. Very impressive.
Yeah. We're at a solid 58.
Woohoo!
And on my channel,
that's
I'm like
from last week.
Something. Yeah. Is it less than last week?
I don't know. I'm just making
I haven't
sure
looked.
at this
I could go look. Yeah. Well, on my channel, I've been losing subscribers. I gain a few, then I lose a few. I gain a few, I lose a few. When Jeff gave me that shout out a few weeks ago, I shot up by 128 over about 3 days. I'm like, man, if I could just keep a tenth of this up, I'll have that magical number. But no, but my views are up. More and more people are engaging in the videos. That's pretty good. Thanks to Kaylin Webb and As Poot by Anakin Skywalker. They've been leaving messages. I think that the troll Lapithanus, I think, commented a couple times too. Seems to pop up every once in a while, and then I don't know. But anyway, go ahead.
So, I don't know if you guys know what Evo is, Brian, Justin.
Partly, I do.
Oh, it's Evo. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, EVO.
Yep.
Evo. Basically, it's an event that usually happens around the summertime. I keep forgetting what month. My memory is shit right now, so I'm not remembering really good. But I think it's like July, August, sometime around there. But it's a fighting game tournament. It's a very well-known event in the gaming community, especially in the fighting game community. Usually it takes place in places like California, and then less said about that, the better. And they always hype up these fighting games, usually that have come out the year before, or games that have been on the lineup for a very long amount of time. An example of a game that Examples include like Street Fighter, Tekken. I would say in the last couple of years we've seen a lot of Mortal Kombat. For people who enjoy Super Smash Brothers, you have Melee and Smash Brothers
The one.
4, just to name a few. So last year was the release of the fourth installment in the Marvel vs. Capcom series. And I'm not going to get too much into the history of the Capcom Marvel license fighting game history, but what was interesting about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, or Marvel vs. Capcom 4, as it's probably more widely known, depending on whatever wants to call it that. It really is the fourth game in the series, so whatever. Is that two things were different. One, it revolved around the MCU. So all the characters in the game were MCU characters, Captain America, even characters that haven't even come out yet, like Captain Marvel. You had the Guardians of the Galaxy, Iron Man, to name a few. Also, what was interesting about that game, for the first time, especially considering the license and the history of the Marvel Capcom fighting game series as a whole, was the absence of the X-Men. And for a lot of people, this was a major missed opportunity, because the X-Men were very popular characters throughout the series. The series itself actually began with the X-Men. I believe the first game in the entire Capcom license was the X-Men Children of the Atom, which was an X-Men fighting game, and would later evolve into the Marvel versus Capcom series that we know this very day.
It was that, and then it was Marvel versus Capcom, and then Marvel versus Capcom. Not quite sure, but it was something like that.
No,
but
you're correct.
The X-Men really started it.
Yeah, the X-Men definitely started, and that was this was during bigger in the 90s. The X-Men were really, I remember growing up as a kid enjoying the X-Men cartoon. It's been referenced in so many media. I even remember an episode of Malcolm in the Middle where the group of kids were like, "Oh, we're the X-Men, and the opposing soccer team are like the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants." Oh man. I mean, come on, who does it? I mean, X-Men are just popular. There's always something for somebody with the X-Men.
Definitely.
So definitely it was a missed opportunity. Some people gave it a chance. Some people said they enjoyed the game. Some people said it was a stellar fighting game. Me, I reserved my judgment until the demo dropped, and when the demo dropped, I was severely disappointed. That demo was a glorified tutorial at best. And it really put me off the game. The game itself had a $200 collector's edition, which you can debate whether it might be worth the $200 or not. I still see that in stores. It could be like Best Buy, GameStop. I still see it for full price. It's sometimes even discounted depending on how much they really want to get rid of those. They're just taking up space. And fighting games are very fickle games because casuals play them, but they get bored of them pretty quick. This is almost true with almost any fighting game. But the fighting game community is the one that keeps it strong. Now, why this is a big deal is because Marvel vs. Capcom has generally been in the EVO tournaments and has been a strong force and has generated a lot of hype. This year, it got knocked out by Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is another fighting game that debuted. Actually, not that long ago.
It just came out like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it really did. I don't know. Have you played it?
Yeah, I had played the beta, and dear Lord, it's a lot of fun when you actually know what you're doing.
Exactly. Like, once you start playing a few games against people that will probably kick your ass, you'll be like, damn, I can't play this anymore unless I get better.
Yeah, definitely. It is easy to get into, but it's hard to master. It
really is. It's like any other fighting game. I have my own opinions of how I feel about it as a fighting game. At times I'm like, it feels like a fighting game, and other times I'm like, it's like not a fighting game. It's kind of hard for me to place where I want to place it, but it's not by any chance a bad game. It does have some flaws, but it is fun. I'm not going to dispute that.
Yeah, it's definitely something needed for like a Dragon Ball fighting game. Because like we had a few good ones, and we had like
it brought something different to the table, and it's from an established franchise that.
No, go ahead.
He's phasing out again. He doesn't realize it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought wait. It could be me, or it could be. I think it probably might be me. I don't know. It's been having some weird connections, but definitely with Dragon Ball Z, we've had some bad games. Well, we've had a few good ones. I mean, not a few good ones. We had a couple good ones. So the whole thing is that for anybody who might not be aware, with the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite game, it was really not Capcom's fault that the X-Men were excluded. It really was Disney's, because Disney wanted to create an MCU game, and since they couldn't get the licensing for the X-Men, being that this wanted to be a movie license type of game, they created it surrounding around the MCU. There's actually a good video about it. Check out Larry Bundy Jr.'s channel on YouTube. He puts on some good video game facts out there, especially from classic games and some obscure facts you may or may not know. But why I'm bringing this up and why I had to explain a little bit of this right now is because, as far as I've seen it for the first time in a long time, Marvel vs. Capcom is not gonna be featured in that lineup. It got kicked out by Dragon Ball FighterZ. God damn it! And on top of that, you have games like Smash Brothers Melee, Smash Brothers 4, taking over its spot. And I really feel this was because, one, they wanted to really stick with that whole, hey, it's the MCU type of game. We have to push our new characters, especially Captain Marvel, who hasn't even come out in the MCU yet. And then secondly, this is what happens when you diss the X-Men. I consider this to be a failure on Disney's part. They could have been part of what would have been a major event. I know some people are not liking it. Me personally, I can only sit back and smile.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's mostly because of the negative outcry of of this game. Like when it first was like announced during like E3.
Yep.
And like everyone was just like, "Oh, this is just horrible," when they were getting like the demos, and like then the news of like getting DLC like when it was just announced. So don't really blame people and this tournament to just not include it, because just has a lot of stink to it.
It did. I mean, video games as a whole nowadays, especially when you consider publishers like Capcom, have gotten a pretty bad rep, especially for DLC practices. And myself, as a gamer, I've always been very skeptical about this whole DLC thing. At times, I want to, purchase DLC, but then there are times when you especially have DLC for stuff that, I mean, the game just hasn't even been released yet, and you're announcing DLC. What the hell is up with that? Capcom's definitely been guilty of that for a very long time. But despite that, they still would have had some success, and I really feel that we would have seen a much different lineup had the X-Men been involved, and then the game itself was a little, that at least their mechanics were a little different. Because I've played that demo, and like I said, it felt more like a tutorial, and even as a game, I didn't feel any fun in it. Like, it just didn't look visually pleasing. It didn't feel right at times when I tried playing it. And like you said, when you picked up the beta for Dragon Ball FighterZ, hell, that's when I was playing the game for the first time. Actually, no, I lied, because I played it for the first time at Comic-Con last year in New York. And then I played the beta, and that made me decide to want to get the game. So for anybody who says, demos don't count, they're not the real game, always remember that demos are released for a reason.
Yep.
Yeah, well, they introduce you to the game. They get you excited for the game. They shouldn't be too buggy, although sometimes they are. I've played demos of some games that I was excited about, and I played the demo, and and then I have other ones when I get to the end of the demo, I'm like, where do I order?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what a good demo is. A good demo is like any good trailer. It should tell you, you know what, get your ass off the couch and go buy me.
Yeah. Well, there was an old game. I actually see it in my drawer here if I can find it. But it's a VGA game. It's a It's published, 1602, I think is the name of it. But I haven't played this in a while. It's just a Windows game, but it's just VGA graphics. It's kind of like a cross between a SimCity and Civilization. And I had the demo for quite a while, and you would get to a point where you could continue playing the game, but you couldn't get any more improvements. You couldn't get any more units or do any other thing. And every once in a while, the narrator who's telling you, "Hey, your citizens want to this, your citizens want to that." They say things like, "Your citizens demand the full version." It's it's pretty funny, but I had I was into Battlefield. I was playing Battlefield 2, and I knew Battlefield 3 was coming out, and that's Blizzard, I think, or it was. And someone gave me the demo for that third one, and I didn't like it as much. And so I ended up not playing it at all. Then they rebooted the whole series. But because I think the first one was like Battlefield 1944 or something like that. And then the second one had some stuff that was like kind of a cross between modern times and World War II. It was very strange. And then I got all the expansions for that thing. The tanks, there was a tank, there was more other maps where you'd have different airplanes and crap and A-10s and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I played that for a long time. That was back in my Windows days, years ago. So
I used to play a few games on PC before. I still remember. I don't know if they still do it now. Because I know nowadays you just download most of the games from like Steam or whatever. But I remember, what was it, probably like late 90s, early 2000s. I used to play a lot of my games on PC also. A lot of them were ports of like Genesis games or like their own, like some type of independent or some type of knockoff of like your typical shooter or something like that for that time.
Yeah.
And I used to remember just going to the stores and I would sometimes see a sale and, you would get the box. And inside the box came the CD with the case. You might have gotten like an instruction booklet with the box or a poster or something if you were lucky. Yeah, man, how much gaming has evolved when you really think about it?
Yeah, really.
Well, really, once people want to say it was Castle Wolfenstein 3D, but I think Doom 2 was really what started. I mean, there was Doom. There was a couple other third-person shooters, but really, when was Doom 2? The early 90s?
Yeah.
Mid 90s. Since then, it's been pretty much that's it. It's like the third-person or first-person shooter came out, and they're all variations on that theme. And Doom 2 didn't even really do. It was three-dimensional in that it had depth, but you couldn't stack. So you couldn't be under somebody. Like if someone, if you had a place you could climb up, it had to be a solid wall. And then, what was it? Duke Nukem 3D kind of changed that, and you could crawl under things and do all kinds of craziness, and had shrink rays. And actually, Heretic was one of my favorites back in the day. It really had low poly. Well, it wasn't polys. It was. Oh shoot! Now I forget. I have to take my nerd hat off. But the resolution was okay. It's just the texture maps weren't very well detailed. So you could increase the speed of the game, and after a while your eyes would just about go blind. It was crazy. It's nothing like now where you've got atmospherics and you get lens flare from the sun when you spin around, and you get trees and things that sway in the wind and birds that fly by, and I mean now it's really unbelievable.
Oh, no kidding. I mean, even games that pay homage to like games of a when things are like when they had lower processing, lower memory. Just to give you a few examples of games that I'll say took it back to a more like classic. I guess we'll call it retro style. I don't like calling it that. Just like calling it more like 80s, 8-bit era, whatever. For example, like Shovel Knight. I don't know if anybody's played that, but that's it's pretty much an entirely 8-bit game, and plays like an 8-bit game, but if you look at it aesthetically, it's just very detailed, very atmospheric. Probably more like 32 or something like that, but crazy, crazy nonetheless. Beautiful game. A lot of fun and very difficult. And then recently there was also last year a game that I would definitely put in the top 3 for me was Cuphead, which
and that's kind of like a side scroller in many ways.
Yeah, no, that is a tribute to the classic side scroller games. It's just that it was very beautifully drawn, great artwork.
Yeah.
Fluid controls for the most part.
Those things, those side scrollers tend to have, and they have some 3-dimensionality to them, even though it's a side scroll. Yeah, my daughter she started playing again, Unraveled, which was an incredibly well detailed game. I mean, that's got a lot of great artwork on it too. She was playing that on Xbox. Xbox One, I guess, is what she was playing that on.
Beats Overwatch.
She plays that too, but she got that on the Xbox, and now she plays it mostly on her computer. Oh, she's cosplayed as several of the characters on there. She's done Diva as an alternate skin, the kind of the country-looking one.
Interesting take.
So, Justin, are you eating your microphone, man?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm hungry.
Was that you, or is that LMP that's making all that ruckus? All right. So, any other news items, things people want to talk about, relevant to pop culture and movies and all kinds of other crap?
Nope.
No. I mean, nothing really that I don't know if you guys will find entertaining or not, but I mean,
we'll bring it up, and if it's not entertaining, we'll cut you off and go on to something else.
Fair enough. Great.
Yep.
I don't know. It's because, like I said, it's been an interesting week. I've been trying to follow as much as I can everything going on, not just the main show, but also whatever else comes across my recommended feed. I really don't have many details to go into it. It was just something revolving around like these gamers that used to play like the Donkey Kong, classic Donkey Kong, and this other game I forgot. And they basically found out that two of these guys that held world records in these games have been found to be frauds or under investigation for, cheating those runs or world record runs that they had. I mean, I didn't really listen too much to it, but it sounded interesting. But like I said, I don't have many details to go by, so I don't think it'd really make for an interesting story.
No, I actually read that story because I think you had posted it or something. And what was interesting is they're using emulators to do these runs. Some of the runs that people have done, they're in cabinets, and you can see by the video that they've got that they're actually on a cabinet. And so there's some speculation. There's a couple things, like the guy years ago who claimed to do something on Dragster on the Atari 2600 has kind of been shown it's impossible. But now I think, to me, my takeaway from the article was not so much that these are frauds, but the discussion is starting to come around, well, when you're using an emulator and you do a save point and you do a specific strategy after that point and you lose and you go back to that save point and do a different strategy, is that or is that not cheating? And I like that discussion because it's in the emulator world, right? Obviously, if you're doing a Pac-Man perfect score or something and you screw up on map 210, you can't just start over, right? Well, you can, but you can't start that map again. You can start all the way back at map 1.
Exactly.
And that takes hours and hours and hours to do. And, if people are going to spend even more time, because even with the emulator, it still takes you hours to get to that point, and you might save and then come back and it merges things. And because I was looking at some of the comments on that, and it's like, is it cheating or is it not cheating? I think the rules committee is going to have to take a look at this and say, hey, maybe you can practice on an emulator, but you can't post a thing about it, because you can do certain things with it but that you can't do on a cabinet. But I don't know, especially the purist of me says they all only be on a cabinet, but on the other side, okay, maybe you have a category that's emulator, and Justin dropped for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Maybe to get some lunch, but that's actually a very interesting debate. And again, like I said, it's been an interesting week. Actually, it's been an interesting 2 weeks because there's been like a lot of debates that I've been bumping into lately. Very good ones actually. But this is definitely one that I really didn't put much thought into it. The only thing I really like, the purist in me, like you said, feels like it should be run on a cabinet, or like it should be run on whatever hardware it was introduced in, because it's not just this whole like world records in. I mean, in that case, it was world records in famous games that have been around for decades now. But you also have people, and there's something called speedrunning that they were trying to discuss that as well. Like, hey, look, should you be using it on the hardware that it was introduced, or should you be using it on a physical hardware? Is emulators okay? And part of me is like, well, for some of these, it can be quite costly to get the hardware in the first place.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So for you to try to say, it would be like me. Let's say I wanted to try out the Donkey Kong, try to beat the high score, right? And let's say, okay, I beat on the emulator. Now comes the time to prove it on the hardware. I have to have access to the hardware, and then just to prove that I can do it, and then two, I would need to recreate that a second time and under a like in front of a live audience, in front of some judges and everything, so they can validate it. Yeah. And even then, imagine how difficult it must be to come across a Donkey Kong cabinet nowadays. And I'm not saying that they're impossible to find, but it's a difference from, like, let's say for me, maybe about anywhere from when I was a teenager, I would say maybe 15 years ago to around anywhere from 15 to 20 years ago. There were still plenty of cabinets all over the place, especially when I used to go to laundromats, arcades, a certain convenience stores probably used to have it out outside or in the lobby, and I don't know. It just brings actually that's very interesting debate, and I don't know how I would feel about that.
Yeah, I think having the categories, because the big question here is obviously emulators were allowed, but the big question is, can you save and then can you roll back and go on, or can you merge?
Yeah, can you merge and
sorry, Justin just sent a message. So, okay, wow, laptop almost shut off due to low battery. Okay, so I've asked him if he wants us to join him back. But, the emulator is obviously allowed, and now the question is can, and, a lot of people will take the emulation pretty seriously. They'll have controllers. It's easy to get a controller that's very similar to the arcade controller and hook it up in an emulator. I mean, heck, you can even use a Raspberry Pi and stuff like that to emulate these things. And some games, the emulators are a little, they're not 100%, and so that's also been part of the debate. Is it a little faster? Is it a little slower? I mean, obviously on some of these emulators you can turn on ROM codes and stuff to be invincible and stuff like that, but people aren't. To me, that's what I would call cheating. But
yeah,
I just find it interesting because like one guy that got, I can't remember his name, but he's been he's held world record for Pac-Man since like the late 70s. He's my age. So this is not like, and I've seen him play. It's some of the maneuvers he does in Pac-Man. I even saw a video of him showing the guy who created Pac-Man how to get past level 255 and have it overflow and what to do about it. I mean, this guy never thought that someone could get that high on the game, and
that's why we have the kill screen.
Right, and the kill screen. And even the way he gets around some of the ghosts, he has to make a maneuver in less than 1/60th of a second or he dies. So the guy's skills in my book are without question, but I had no idea that whole world was that competitive.
Yeah, I mean, especially, I mean, I'll say in the last couple of years started getting into, I won't say I got into it, but rather started enjoying competitive gaming. Yeah, then there's another debate that people have. Do you consider it a sport or not a sport? to me, I'm like, listen, if we're gonna call it esports or something like that, it sounds dumb in my mind because you're trying to make it sound like, oh, it's a sport like soccer, and people have actually debated that, like it's a sport like football, soccer, whatever. I'm like, I'm not even gonna entertain that idea because it's not the same type of. It's a sport by definition of as a competition, but I would not put it in, like where people want to say they want to put it like on ESPN and stuff like that. I'm like, okay.
Well, hey, is fishing a sport? I don't know. So Justin's back. At least his icon's back. He said he was back.
He's gotten food now.
Am I here?
Yeah. Yeah, we're still recording too, man. So.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
It's live.
I needed to plug my laptop back in because it was shutting down.
Okay.
That's happened to me before.
Yeah. Now we're talking about the controversy of was it Donkey Kong, the world record Donkey Kong run? Is that what that?
Well, I forgot the one that actually started. It wasn't the Donkey Kong run. That's actually the one that's going on now, and I found that interesting because they say that was always been a controversial one, but it was like they could never dispute it, and now like there's enough evidence to go around that they can dispute. And I think part of it is also because maybe now there's technology and software that could probably detect certain things like this. Like if someone's cheated, they can analyze videos, sound quality, and everything.
Yeah,
I think that's part of the reason why they can detect it now.
That was covered in that article. That was the basically someone made a save point and they kind of merged the files together, and there was a way to detect that. I don't know. I guess they'll figure out what the rules should say, because what's the difference between that? Granted, some modern games will do allow save points, but obviously back then in the coin-op ones they didn't, and probably coin-op now still don't probably. I mean, I haven't been in an coin-op arcade for new games in I don't know how long. So
coin games are essentially gambling games if you think about it, because you're paying. Well, you're not paying to get like money or something like that, but you're paying for like a high score or something like that.
That's entertainment.
For entertainment purposes. You can look at it as almost as a paying for a slot machine, really. But the only difference being that no money's gonna come out of the machine for you if you win. It really is to just take your money. It really is. Yeah. But the whole purpose of it was that they were created not only to take your money, but also to increase difficulty so that at some point you would have to lose. And again, this is why the things like the kill screen were discovered. They weren't programmed into the game. They were a result of something that the programmers had not anticipated.
It's an 8-bit overflow is what it is.
Yeah. And you even have people who, what was it, the Pac-Man kill screen, the one where I think people actually were able to play through that. Like, that's how ridiculous it is. That's how skilled some people are. And I would argue if we're talking about skill, like considering who's the best player in the world and stuff like that, if these are the people that can pull these feats without any type of like save points or anything like that, then that's obvious skill. And I think that should apply to not only video games, but anything in general, any type of competition. Because let's be reasonable. How many competitions out there do you know that have like a save point, like a checkpoint where you can just continue off of where you left? It's very rare that you would use that sort of thing. I mean, think about how any competition or any sport would be different. I mean, and yeah, you have things like timeouts and stuff in certain sports, but I'm talking about like actual redo, like a point where you just redo the whole thing. Imagine how that would be and how long and tedious that sport would become, or that game, or that whatever competition. It would get boring at some point. Like you cannot just be hitting reach points and continuing the game. So I would say, and while I'm not sure how to feel about the whole emulator thing, the whole using save points, like, hey, okay, great, I messed up. I'm a save point here. If I mess up here, we just go back to the time that I did this at or whatever, and continue and start it over from there. No, just start it over from the beginning. That way, nobody can accuse you for cheating. It's you're proving your skill in that. Whether it's been modded or not, that's another question. But I think it should be fair across the board, not just in video games, but in anything in general that is a competition. Because we can't just be redoing everything, and and we've already seen enough of that in entertainment as it is. and look where that's getting us.
So, but if anybody's out there wanting to know, Billy Mitchell did it first, although it was in 1999, so it took a long time before anybody was really skilled at these games. He did it in 5.5 hours. The world record seems to be 3 hours 42 minutes, something like that. And so that's the first perfect game where they get all the possible points. So that means all dots, all ghosts, all fruit on every screen. Well, up until the point where the ghosts, I mean, at some point the ghosts don't even turn blue anymore. You know, so you can't get them. I don't remember what screen that is, but anyway, let's move on. We've been talking about this one for too long. So,
hey, we got to listen to some game history from you.
Yeah. Well, hey,
So-
I used to know some patterns for Pac-Man. I used to get to about the 5th or 6th screen, and that was about it. But I used to be able to do that without dying, and then once I started dying, I was pretty much hosed. Miss Pac-Man, I never could play very well. By then, I was on to Gyrus and some
a lot of
other.
interesting history behind that one too.
Yeah, Gyrus was one of those. I tried. I never made it to Earth. I think I got within 2 warps of Earth. That's as close as I got. I played that game a lot in high school.
Damn.
So, I mean, I got to the point where I could do the first 6 screens. I don't know if you've ever played Gyrus, but the ships fly in and then they assemble up. But I got to know the patterns well enough that the first 6 screens they never even formulated. I would kill them all before as they came on. And
that's
you could
when the planes come at you and start firing at you, right?
Yeah, and that one
Yeah,
you can get
definitely
killed on the bonus screens, and you can get killed as they fly in, which I always thought was unfair, because there's one pattern where they come in and you actually have to move because they'll come in underneath you, and then you actually will die. But yeah, that was an interesting game, and I knew only one person in high school that actually got past it. And then it just restarts. Apparently, there's a warp screen. I think it's when you're 3 warps from Uranus or something like that. But it's just like the other 2, but it's faster. And then once you pass that screen, then it like starts all over again. As far as it doesn't get any more difficult. But that's, I don't know. Maybe one of these days I'll get MAME working and find that video game and put myself on God mode just to see how I can get past it. I mean, years ago I had the emulator on a Windows machine, and my daughter would play like Pac-Man or something, and I'd usually put her in Invincible or something, so she would just play for a while. Otherwise, I mean, she was all like 2 or 3. Otherwise, she's playing for 2 minutes and then screaming. But so, but yeah, Donkey Kong was another one of those that I could play fairly well. Donkey Kong Jr. on the ColecoVision I could play much better than the Donkey Kong game, and that was back when Mario was kind of the bad guy. Donkey Kong Jr. Because Jr. was trying to save Pop. So I don't even know if that character even had a name on the original Donkey Kong. I don't remember.
There's a lot of theories out there, but I don't know. I honestly, I just look at it like, okay, that's Mario and that's Donkey Kong and that's Donkey Kong Jr. So I don't know what happened that day. Maybe he was trying to teach his son a lesson. I don't know.
Because by the time you get to Mario Brothers, the Donkey Kong is gone, right? That character isn't even around anymore. But that was for the NES, so that was in '84. See, the NES came out much sooner than I thought, because when I was in high school, especially when I lived in Germany, I moved to Germany in '83. Everybody either had an Atari or a ColecoVision or Intellivision, mostly ColecoVision. And then Coleco went out of business, or they didn't. Well, they stopped making it. Somewhere in there, I ordered some games that never arrived, but because I bought a ColecoVision used, and then my other friends had Apple II computers. My school, we had Atari 800s, and it was years later when I heard about the actually the NES and the Super NES, or the SNES as they say in England. I watched some of those videos. It's pretty cringeworthy.
The SNES.
The
yeah,
NES
I've heard that
SNES.
so many times as a kid. I didn't know that was from that said that a lot in England.
Yeah, and they say games console. They don't say gaming console or game console. They also say maths. They also say maths as plural. Math is plural, which I still haven't been able to figure out. So if anybody knows why they say it that way in England, please let us know in the comments. That would be awesome.
Or if anybody knows a hot British chick that would like to be on this show, I don't know. Do we have a fan mail thing?
Sure. Well, we could get one. No, there's a Gmail account. I've just never given it out.
Oh, well, we'll figure something out if one ever decides to hit us up or something.
Just right now, the best thing is just to send us comments on, because we'll get to the comments too. So one of the things I'm going to close out the news unless anybody's got something really, really pressing. My only other thing is, go ahead.
Like for people interested in like the high scores and all that, watch like The King of Kong, because that's a good documentary on that stuff like that.
Yep.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah, and there's a lot of videos on there where I've seen Billy Mitchell do stuff. He was the one that I saw a video of him showing a guy who created Pac-Man, teaching more about the game and how to overcome it. It's just anybody that can do that stuff, their skills are pretty amazing. But the only other beef thing that I have that I want to cover in the news that hasn't been either covered to death or talked to death on the WCBS Facebook page, and that is Rotten Tomatoes moratorium on negative reviews. Now, I understand at least what it says in the press release about why they're doing this. I think it's BS. I don't think you're going to get a bunch of white supremacists that are going to downvote this movie just because there's a black guy. It takes place in Africa. I have a really hard time believing that all 15 of those people are going to make that much of a difference. But the negative comments. So Rotten Tomatoes right now is kind of fans are in a bit of an uproar about. I'm sure the movie's probably going to be at least decent. None of the Marvel movies have really sucked. I'm personally. I'm burnt out on it. Winter Soldier to me was not that great a movie, but from a standpoint of just looking at them, Ant-Man I haven't seen. Doctor Strange was actually pretty good.
I haven't watched that one yet, oddly enough.
Wait, right. But to me, the problem is you had this stuff with Star Wars and The Last Jedi, and people were saying that it was a bunch of fake stuff, and Rotten Tomatoes comes out and says, no, these are real votes and things, and we've actually seen more people sign up and write reviews than ever before. And then to turn around and block downvoting the Black Panther until it comes out, I think is kind of weird.
Yeah.
When I heard that, there's just so many thoughts put into my head. Like, I didn't even know how to approach this. Again, referring back to what I had posted on Facebook, I even wanted to address some things about it because it's just to me it's just a big gigantic clusterfuck of, hey, look at the month that it's coming out in, look at this historical thing. Oh, and how many times have I heard that term being used in the last couple weeks? Historical. Like, not everything has to be historical. Okay, like, not everything has to be groundbreaking. As long as it is good, as long as it holds its own, and you have a likable hero, he ain't a Mary Sue, he has a decent cast to support him, has a strong enough villain that can stand on its own 2 feet and possibly kick his own ass here and there, just make it a TV movie, people will enjoy it. This is why people enjoyed movies like Blade.
Yeah,
because he was a badass. Okay, nobody was thinking about the time, oh, this is a progression for strong black characters. Yeah, he was a strong black character because Wesley Snipes is black and the character himself in the comics is, but that's not the reason why people just like him. And then you also had Spawn, who I didn't know was black himself until like only the last couple of years when I really started getting into comic books and understanding them a little better. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't know that. But he's always a badass character that people enjoyed.
Yeah.
And there are other strong characters out there that people enjoyed. They didn't care about race or ethnicity. That really started becoming more of a thing in the last couple of years when you had certain groups, certain people out there with certain ideologies pushing these narratives. And now all of a sudden it's come to a point where it's come to a scary point where no one's either, because I don't find it, I don't really think that a lot of like corporations and businesses actually want to adhere to these ideologies, but I think it is that they feel that they're in a situation where they can't go against it because it's going to be bad press for them and they lose money.
Well, they're gonna irritate a handful of people who can act like they're 10,000. I mean, this is part of the problem when you get one comment in the marketing department says, well, that represents 2,000 people or something, and they know this, and this is a problem with the identity politics and the people that some of these, I guess, is their full-time job is to complain about stuff they don't like, but they go. It's been when you know how to research the messaging and see where the traffic's coming from, you can prove many times. In fact, I know some places that I've heard people talking about this where they have tracked it down to the actual people. Here's 100 messages that look like they're from 100 different accounts, but they're coming from and they started naming people like so and so in California, so and so in Colorado, and
yes, that's IP.
Right, and that's the problem, because then if it makes the news, and it's bad publicity, and when everything is based on perception and not reality, that's the problem. I mean, yeah, this could be a great movie. Now, granted, I've seen some of the trailers, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's the CGI physics nonsense, and it's like this again. But to your point, you start with a good story and good characters. It's only as people get caught up in the identity politics care. I mean, someone posted on the Facebook page, someone had there's a couple of people that want to show up in black, black dress, as in African dress or something. Yeah. I'm like, where was this in the 90s for Blade? Wesley Snipes was an action hero in a bunch of different movies, some of them okay, some of them good. I sure don't remember people getting all going all crazy, and if I go see Schwarzenegger in a movie, I'm not wearing lederhosen and a felt hat, and it's just dress however you want, but I don't understand why it's I guess that's the problem. I don't understand why it's such a now it's so. I think I agree with you, LP. I don't think it's as big a deal as people want to believe it is. But it's this generation's, nothing happens before us, so we have to make it bigger, perhaps. I don't know.
And see, with the whole dress thing, I haven't really gone into it as much on the Facebook page, but I really felt like this one needed to be spoken, because I don't think there was any way I could write it into text and get the full context out of what I'm about to say. This is definitely going to come out very politically incorrect, so for anybody with any weak ideologies, you may want to just turn up the volume even more. Anyways, so there was the whole thing about, oh, hey, we're gonna go watch Black Panther. What outfit should I wear and everything? Oh, should I wear like all black, or should I wear an African dress? And I'm like, okay, so this whole thing is that there's this whole like black ideology thing going on, and here's what people don't understand, or this is what people seem to get confused. Maybe they're just not aware of what they're saying, and this goes, or maybe they just, again, like I said, I really don't think they understand, a lot of people. And then you just have those with these mentalities that think they know what they're talking about, but really, if they really thought about it, they sound pretty ignorant in their own remarks. Hell, even I'm starting to make no sense now just thinking about it. But they're confusing black with African culture, and even then, I can't even say African culture, because in African culture, there are many cultures. It's not just Africa is one continent, but the different countries have different cultures, different people. They actually, even the people in those countries identify as different races. If you don't believe me, there was a genocide that took place when in what was it, the 90s, I think it was, or 2000s? Rwanda? I don't know.
Well, there's been several different things. Somewhere in the 90s. Yeah, was you talking in Rwanda or?
Yeah, Rwanda. Yeah. Rwanda, one of the big ones, the world known one, very well known one.
Yeah, well, then you also had in the in South Africa, you also had I forget which tribe Mandela was from, but those two were going after each other for a long time. Rhodesian Civil War, you had which is now
That's what happened.
Zimbabwe. You had different things. Yeah, I've seen it. Well, there was a movie.
They probably weren't.
There was Bruce Willis was in a movie, and that was kind of about some of that, where they were trying to smuggle some people over. They were trying to like get into Nigeria or something, or Niger, because once they got there, they all spoke French. I put it this way: even when the political crap was really starting in the late '80s, I guess in the early '90s. I knew some people that were African immigrants. One guy actually was from the Caribbean, and he worked at Walmart. He had owned a pet store and fish stores before, but he was working in the pet department. This is when I was really into aquariums and a bunch of other stuff. So he had a lot of information. I'd always ask him questions about stuff. When all this crap started to really wrap up, he stops me and he says, "Why do people want to be anything other than American? So why?" He even accused me. He said, "Why do you want to divide all the Americans by this or by that?" And I was like, "I don't." I used to work with a guy. It's been several years ago, but he was from Nigeria, and he would. Then what tripped him up a lot of time were the names. The stereotypical Black American names, especially the last 20 years. He would, and I cannot do his accent, and I'm not going to try it. But he would ask me. He said, "What is wrong with you people?" It's like, "What do you mean, me?" He said, "You should see that. My neighborhood. I mean, my neighborhood's pretty much 50-50." And I would tell him some of the names of the kids, and he would just shake his head, and he said, "Because it's like this it's like this almost Spanish/African mix of spellings and pronunciations and things." And
Yeah.
I said, "Dude, I don't understand it." I said, "Now my name, I get called Byron. My name gets misspelled in more ways than I can ever imagine." But yeah, I mean, well, not kid and play.
You almost had it.
Huh?
You
Something.
almost had it.
It's Peel. Something to Peel.
I don't know. You're getting somewhere, but I know you almost had it.
They've done a video. Those two comedians.
Key and
Key
Peele?
and Peele, yeah. That's why I had the "k" and it kept saying kid. I mean, they did a
Okay.
whole video about that. About mispronouncing. D-nice here. Or do you mean Denise? The roll call one. And
Yeah, the roll call.
I mean, Shathid is still one of my favorites, but yeah, I don't. I think this is kind of the consequence of this dividing people into smaller and smaller groups. It's now people don't have an identity, and this is just an observation. This is not. I'm not making a critique, but it seems that my observation is that's what people are longing to ground in something, and so Africa is turned into it. They act like it's a single nation when it's many nations with many different
nations.
cultures.
Many
In North
tribes.
Africa, you've got a heavy Arab influence. You have a Semitic influence. The Somalis are very different than Nigeria or Zimbabwe. You get into the interior of Africa, it's a different culture that developed there. It's still a lot of hunter-gatherer in some areas and stuff like that. But, it's a big, it's like, I don't identify myself as European necessarily. I mean, German and perhaps English in origin, but that's Europe is starting to kind of go through somewhat of a crisis like that too, where people are being called nationalists, and in a very bad sense if they want to say, "Hey, I'm German," or "I'm French," or "I'm Italian."
Yeah, why would that be? See, and stuff like that pisses me off because I'm like, growing up, I've always been told, "Hey, appreciate your heritage and your culture." But for people like me, it was a bit difficult because, I had a family that migrated here, so they're concerned with me not wanting to not fitting in with their culture. But then at the same time, I was born here, so and there was a bit of that shaming thing growing up where it was like, I would tell people I was American, other Spanish people, and they would say, "No, you're not American." There was like this kind of like shame thing to them, like, "Oh, you look like us, you shouldn't be anything else but us." But and it would be like many years later when I actually put my foot down to a lot of these people and told them, "Listen, while I may be born of, I'm descendant of this particular background and everything like that. My home has and always will be these here United States. I am American, and even if I were to go to the country of my the motherland of my parents, they there don't consider me to be that culture. They can, just by the way I talk, the way I look, the way I act, hell, even the way I eat, they'll look at me and say, "You're not from around here, are you?" And they can tell from the moment that I step foot outside, that person is a foreigner. So you can kind of this is what people don't get, or rather, it's not that they may either not get it or they don't want to get it. I always feel like it's one of those two camps. Either people are not getting it, maybe they're not smart enough, maybe they were not born with enough oxygen to their brain, the cord got wrapped around their neck and they had to do life saving surgery. I don't know, or maybe they just don't want to get it because it triggers them, or they just feel like this is a power trip and they need to do whatever it takes to keep that high. In the situation of Black Panther, I feel really bad for the character of Black Panther because I would say many years ago when they, not trying to make the conversation about video games again, but when Marvel vs. Capcom 2, many years after Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and then they started, people were like, "Oh, what would you put in the Marvel vs. Capcom 3?" I knew who Black Panther was, and I knew he was a Marvel character. I thought he looked cool. I'm like, why not a character like Black Panther? Or when they started making the first Iron Man movie, I'm like, can you? And when that was a success, I watched. I was like, oh my god, this is enjoyable. And then we started getting more superheroes as a result. I'm like, imagine we can finally get a Captain America. Imagine Captain America. Imagine more Spider-Man movies. This is long after Spider-Man, the original trilogy, Tobey Maguire trilogy, one of the best movies ever. Anyways, I remember throwing out Black Panther as one of those names, and people would laugh at the idea. And now it's like, here we are in 2018. All of a sudden, everyone wants to ride that bandwagon for what it's worth. Weebooism at its finest. And I find myself thinking back to that. I was like, wait a second. Not to sound like a hipster, but I was throwing out, the possibility of this guy having his own movie, being put into a video game, way before it became trendy and cool. Like, come on, the fuck on. These people are, and I'm always in a firm believer that this whole social justice thing, aside from being a fad, has to be a power trip. Because some people are in it because it's the trendy thing. They don't want to be left out. It always has to be part of something on Facebook and social media. And then you have those that are exploiting it because they can either make a quick buck out of it or can gain followers or support. And again, I mean, I really feel bad that this is the movie that many people are going to choose to die on the hill for. But if the movie turns out to be a bad movie, Rotten Tomatoes should have no excuse for a 100% score. I saw that score, what was it, a couple days ago, and I kept thinking to myself, how the hell does it have a 100% score now? Like, the movie just came out. Like, do these people not find one negative thing about this movie? Not one nitpick? Nothing? Or are they just that afraid to say something bad about the movie?
Yeah. It's really harmful because when you do find something wrong with it, it's going to be like taken to a higher degree because everyone's going on and on about how good this movie is.
Yeah.
Criticism is fair.
They are. Hopefully it'll be good. But yeah, I don't know. It's I put it this way, as far as from what you were saying, LP, about identifying and stuff. When we lived in Germany in the 80s, my mom's mother, I think I've told this story before, but her mother and her aunt came to visit. Right. And so my aunt, my grandmother, my great aunt looked German, and Germans of their age would come up to them and speak to them in German, but they spoke very little German. Their mother came to America as a young girl, but she didn't teach them any German. And then my dad's father, his dad came, I think as a teenager, And he would call and write letters and call back to Germany and talk to relatives, but he never taught his son any German. But here I'm just 2 generations removed, and I don't look German, and very few Germans would accuse, and it was one of these things that once I had a friend of mine say, yeah, once you're here, you'll be able to tell who's German, who's not. And I thought he was kidding. And yeah, within, I don't know, a few weeks, it's like, yeah, I can tell who's German, who's American, even if they're dressed the same way. When you're out and about and stuff like that, there was just a different look to people. And people will pick up on that. And, even if I spoke decent German, they knew I was an American, usually without even me saying, hey, I'm an American. In France, they would just, ignore you. But,
damn French.
Yeah. But, and immigrants previously, and it wasn't just Europeans, but there was a big push to Americanize, and that was kind of add your distinctiveness to the experiment, the great melting pot, as we used to call it. And, our version of Chinese food isn't exactly Chinese food, and our pizzas, pizza, you can argue with, there's a version of pizza in Italy, but the pizza as we know it is actually from New York, from Italian immigrants. We've changed bagels, we've changed donuts, all these things have modified and changed. Heck, we've changed the crap out of beer, but they have someone else's takes. We take influence from different cultures and different backgrounds, and you get this variety of flavors and spices and ideas of how to cook and bake, and to me, I think that's the greater experiment. But I don't know. I don't want to sit here and play psychologist with some of these people, because I think some people are just kind of caught up in it. But I think some people are. It's almost like a cry for an identity. But we'll see if the movie comes out and is horrible, and yet Rotten Tomatoes doesn't let people say that. Then I think we have a problem. If the movie comes out and it's good, and let's say it drops down to an 82%, I think it's like a 90. I want to say it's like at 97 or 98%. It's at 98% right now. Paddington 2 is still at 100% from the professional reviewers. So, it's not out of the question that you get 100%. Jumanji's at 76%, and it apparently has taken back over the box office. It's now number 1 again, for the week. But, 98% and there's an 80, let's see, that's 90 reviews have counted. So 88 have said fresh, 2% have said rotten. The user ratings it's 37,821, and it's 95% of the people want to see it. But we'll see. I really hope that the political BS can be pushed aside and people can express their true opinions of the movie, even if they're hate-filled, a-holes. They should at least have the freedom to express it. You can just ignore it or not believe them, don't listen to them. But the censorship is where I kind of start to draw the line and say, hey, I don't really know. I don't agree with that. So let's move on to some other topics, man. We've been at this an hour. We've barely scratched the surface.
No, I know. We can't be telling people how to show other people the way.
Right. Because they don't have Ebola. So, movie trailers.
Oh God, I don't gotta get accused of stealing jokes. No, I'm gonna stop right there.
Yeah. Movie trailers. That was.
Have not seen them.
I've seen some. I saw Solo and Deadpool and Jessica Jones.
Oh, I thought we were excluding Solo, but yeah, I saw that one.
No, we're not excluding it. Hey, I watched the Shape of Water trailer last week because I wanted to know what the heck was this big deal about the movie, and I was like, it's about this, I don't know if he's an alien or just some kind of aquatic being, and I was just like, this looks kind of weird. Because that was one of the charges that people were mistaken The Shape of Water for The Last Jedi, and they were going in the wrong theater or whatever, and I'm like, there's no way. There's no way.
So nobody saw the missing lightsabers and thought to themselves, isn't this movie supposed to have lightsabers in it?
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
Well, and the one one of the cleaning ladies, she's like Eastern European or something. You know, it's like so Solo. I watched the teaser, obviously not during the Super Bowl since I was driving back from Atlanta on Sunday. And then I watched the full trailer on Monday after Jeff pushed, because he was talking about it. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember that being in the trailer. So I had to actually go find, there's a real trailer out. You know, I have zero emotion for Star Wars anymore. But my son and his friends did a podcast yesterday, and I'll put a link in the description because it is saved out on YouTube. And they're all 18, 19-year-olds, and they really, really hated it. There's things from Futurama. There's a jar where there's a head of the jar, a jar with a head in it. There's a lady singing like it's the Fifth Element. It's got like a mishmash of stuff.
Kids do you proud.
So, what do you guys think? You know, see it, not see it, don't care.
I'm partly seeing it now, and it just looks like anything else you could see.
Well, one of the comments in on Jeff's his review of it was, "Hey, that Blade Runner 3 movie looks really lit." And I was like, "Yeah, it does kind of have that feel."
I was gonna say the alternate title. God damn it! What's up with me tonight? Alternate title. Solo Assembled.
Yeah.
So the moment he said something about putting the team together, I was like, "What?"
Well, hey, you know, to me, what I get from that is this feels like a good first movie for a possible Solo. I won't say trilogy, but 2 movies. Kind of like this is where he learns the trade. He gets part of a crew. They do a heist. Then he decides, I want to do something on my own. And he starts smuggling. And we have the... we could do a successful Kessel run. And then we have the time where he gets bored. You know, he's going to get boarded by the Imperials. So he has to dump the spice. And that's what gets him in trouble with Jabba the Hutt. And that would lead into Episode 4. But if they try to do all that in one movie, I think it's too far. Because the guy looks too young. I know he's only a handful of years younger than Harrison Ford was back in the 70s, but he looks a lot younger. So
Yeah, he looks like 14.
yeah. I mean, he looks like he's like 23 or something, but he's like 35 or something. I was like, man, geez. I thought I looked young at that age.
Oh, Chewbacca looks great, man. I mean, I think that's the slimmest he's ever been in his life.
Yeah. And they have, but that was he's got the dual landoliers or whatever those things. Yeah, it's like he's a bandito, Chewbacca.
Oh
he's
shit!
Desperado.
Oh shit! I didn't know Chewbacca was from my neck of the desert.
Yeah.
I have to pay him a visit now.
So Deadpool 2. Let's go on to some happier news. Has anybody else watched this trailer? The second trailer.
I haven't been trying to.
Oh, you got to see it. It's great.
Sadly, I haven't. I just didn't even know until earlier today there was a trailer, and I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Yeah, it's hilarious because it starts and then I didn't even notice there was a problem, and Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool's like, whoa, wait a minute, go back, look at his arm, Then he kind of does this Doc Brown type thing, although he doesn't say that it's not painted into scale, but it's not to scale, and it's hilarious. Oh, it's a really good.
It's like when they came out with the Bob Ross trailer, and he was like, cocaine all the time.
Yeah. Well, just the names of the paints was hilarious. So yeah, that was good. I showed the Bob Ross one to my wife. She's like, "Oh, I actually might want to see this movie." She hasn't seen the first one.
The only thing I'll say is if she sees the strap-on scene and suddenly says, "Hey, I want to try that," you better run.
Just any interest at all? Like she that looks interesting. Run.
Yeah. Well, Deadpool's coming out. That's the other thing that I told the my sons and his friends because they were talking about release dates. I got them all set up upstairs. I came downstairs to do some other stuff and listen to the podcast. So I was commenting. I said, look it up when Deadpool 2 comes out. And so there's some other movie, I forget now what, and then Solo, and then Deadpool comes out. Deadpool's out the week before. And they're like, yeah, this thing's not going to make any money. They're pretty much just writing it off.
Yeah.
And they're the target audience, age-wise. Yeah.
Mm.
So, Venom. One of you guys said you've seen the Venom trailer, but I forget, was that...
I have, and it just looks very underwhelming. Again, it looks like something else besides, like a Marvel movie or like a Venom movie.
Now, who's doing the Venom movie? Is that Sony?
Yeah, it's Sony.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Kind of looks like it's kind of taking, like Jeff said in the actual episode, it's like his story, like having cancers, like from the comics, but it's like the cartoon and almost everything else where they get the symbiote.
Yeah.
And it just looks like a little bit of a mess on the mess coming in.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the story's a mess, and I think they're Sony. They're kind of like DC. They're trying to go too far too fast. I mean, the first two Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies were good, and then the third one was, for the most part of what made it suck was the studio dictating to them what to do. We need to have 3 bad guys. Yeah, it's like, really, this is just dumb. And we're gonna retcon the first one and who actually killed Uncle Ben. And I'm like, That's just stupid.
Huh. Maybe Sony can go the Disney route and make another prequel movie. Uncle Ben. Solo story.
It can happen.
Yeah.
We'll get to know the origins of Uncle Ben and how he used to fight crime back in the day, or probably didn't.
The mild-mannered. I don't even know what Uncle Ben did for a living.
Oh, what did he do for a living? All I know is he died. That was it.
He just worked. He just had a job somewhere.
But he did say some of the most iconic lines ever.
Yeah.
And then I remember Peter basically dropped the ball and let his uncle die, and that was the end of that.
Yeah.
Unintentionally, of course, but still.
Okay. Okay. So, what was the other? Oh, Jessica Jones, season 2. I watched that trailer a couple days ago, I think it was, and I was like, oh, it's the angsty brunette. Yay, she's back. Still hates the world, hates her life. Blah blah blah.
She sounds like the perfect goth girlfriend.
Yeah. And I was really like, yeah, this is stupid. I liked the first season, and not just because David Tennant was in it, but I didn't watch any of the other stuff. They had, was it Daredevil and Fist of Fury or whatever, the guy, Thunder Fist or whatever the heck that other guy's. I didn't watch any of those. Wasn't interested.
Thunder Fist.
I don't know what I don't know what is his name.
That sounds like
Iron Fist.
That sounds like a gangbang waiting to happen with Jessica Jones. Thunder Fist and Daredevil.
Daredildo.
Thunder Fist. I don't know what Thundercock. I think Thunder Fist is better. It just insinuates more. Like you could have more possibilities with that.
Right.
Oh my. Oh, like he'll summon lightning while she orgasms.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other movie trailers or any of the comments and stuff that on WCBS talked about that you want to agree with, disagree with, take Dion to task for?
Just a simple I agree.
There is one thing about I have to ask. Wasn't Mr. Red a racist horse or something like that? I know I saw a documentary about that somewhere on Comedy Central, but I can't remember what was the name of the show.
What?
Mr. Ed?
Yeah, Mr. Red. I think they said something about Rin Tin Tin. I know Flipper apparently liked to scare black people too, apparently. God, please tell me one of you at least knows what I'm talking about.
Well, the show was called
it's
Mr.
Chappelle
Ed.
Show or something like
Oh,
that.
thank God.
Oh, Chappelle Show.
Oh, man.
Oh, I remember now.
That was a great set. That was a great sketch. I forgot what Mr. Ed said, but I remember they had that one guy dress up like Flipper the Dolphin and go into the pool, scare all the people away. Classic.
Yeah. I don't know, but that was, with Kendo, because when I was talking to him last night, they hinted at that, but I really had no idea what they were talking about because I hadn't watched listened to that part of the episode, but that was hilarious. It's like he just kept trolling and kept trolling. And I don't know if Dion didn't get it, or was just playing along, but that was just funny.
Hey, it was one of the best.
I'm not afraid of horses. I just don't trust them.
I don't either. I don't trust any. I don't trust horses. I don't trust ducks. What else don't I trust? Feel free to chime in anytime, Justin, with what you don't trust.
I don't trust people I don't know.
Yeah.
Duh. But what about farm animals?
Well, I know one thing. Don't turn your back on a hog. When you're in the pigsty, you got to make sure that they stay in front of you and you keep an eye on them, because they actually can kill people.
Oh.
Are they like ducks? If you turn your backs on ducks?
Oh, I don't care about ducks. I'll just kick them in the bill.
Well,
it's like that we get Canadian geese around here. And years ago, when I worked at LexisNexis, they were telling me how these are, protected animals and blah blah blah. And I'm like, look, if they're wandering around on the, I actually carried an umbrella for a reason. And it wasn't to keep the poop off of me from falling in the sky. It's like if one of those things comes at me, I'm going after it. I mean, I'm not going to go and disturb its nest on purpose, but there's going to be a dead goose if it comes after me. Like, oh no, you need to run away. I'm like, run away from what? It doesn't have any teeth. Yeah, the bite's going to hurt, but it isn't hardly going to draw blood. And that's what the umbrella's for.
Yeah.
Well, from what I understand, you want to be careful around ducks. Apparently, they can get a pretty rapey.
I know you're not supposed to feed them bread, even though we did it for decades.
Wait, do they blow up if you do?
No, it's just not very nutritional for them. Heck, bread isn't much nutrition for humans either. All the sugar and crap that's in it. Yeah, I mean, manufacture bread. Make your own bread. Get a bread machine. Make your own bread. Get good grains. You live a lot longer.
Don't feed the ducks. They will do things to you when you turn your back.
So is anybody interested in doing the Triple Crown that Kendo did?
What was it?
It was a Big Mac, a Junior Big Mac, a Big Mac, and a Big Mac Grande or something like that. I didn't know there were 3 sizes of a Big Mac.
Oh, God, no. I kind of want to live another year.
I mean, that's a lot of bread. I haven't had I don't even know what decade I last had a Big Mac in. When they came out with a quarter pounder in the 80s, that's a quarter pounder with, I used to get a quarter pounder and a regular burger and a large fry. I did a Big Mac and a regular burger and a large fry back. And granted, they probably weren't as big as they are nowadays. But, yeah, my daughter brought a double cheeseburger home, her and her friends today. I was like, actually looked pretty good. So, all right. Well, any other movie trailers you guys want to talk about?
I don't know. You got anything, Justin?
Nope, not really.
You got any other topics before I get to the last point of the cast?
Don't trust dolphins. I saw that King of the Hill episode.
Trying to pay me off to not talk about it.
Uh,
Yeah, don't. I agree with Justin. Do not trust dolphins. Apparently, they will either press you up against a glass wall, or they will kill you out at sea.
and that's not a
You're,
hand they extend.
no, apparently they have been known to drown. I think not human beings, but they've drowned other animals, and they will attack other animals with the because apparently what is it that their mouth, that like that long mouth snout thing they got going on, apparently that thing can hit you pretty hard, like
Oh yeah, it's
yeah,
bone. It's not
yeah,
cartilage, and they have
yeah.
teeth. I mean, they're a predator. They're a predatory animal. I mean, mostly they hunt fish and other things, but yeah, they're gonna go after
Well,
things.
if you want some more disturbing dolphin content, remember the channel Larry Bundy Jr. I recommended earlier. He has a video on the true history or the true story behind Echo the Dolphin, another I won't say famous video game because I don't think people know what that game is nowadays, but it was very well known during the Sega years. Just to let you know, I already knew about that story before I saw that video, but if anybody's interested, well, just to let you know, dolphins apparently get pretty emotional.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe it. All right, well, it's enough dolphin talk. Another topic that LMP wanted me to talk about was Days of the Dead last weekend. So
Lay it on us.
last weekend, and I'm getting kind of tired, and I just got over a cold. I don't want another one, so I don't want to be down in the basement too much longer. So we're going to wrap it up as well. So I went down to Atlanta, Georgia last Friday, which is why we didn't have a show. It's a nice 8-hour drive for me. I did, I forget how many miles, like 900 some odd miles over the weekend. And, I mean, relatively uneventful on my way down. I met up with the Buckshort production crew. If anybody's on Facebook, I did post a bunch of pictures. I didn't take a whole lot. I was trying to get some of the celebrities, but I kept getting a lot of really nasty stares from volunteers, but I should have been a little bit smarter with it than I was. But so I got, Danielle and Cassidy and Richard Tanner and the guy who played Frankenthug, whose name I forget. I got a picture of him, the two of us. He's a little shorter than I am. And then right next to him was Wages of Sin, I think, is there. I forget now. I got a card somewhere. But they're kind of partners, and that's CINE, as in like cinema. Met up with quite a few artists, a photographer. This photographer chick, I was talking to her a little bit. They did have, so none of it was just horror stuff, but they also had Karate Kid. So they had Ralph Macchio was there, the guy who played his arch nemesis, and the guy that was the Cobra Kai instructor, whose name I don't remember. C. Thomas Howell was there, so they had Lost Boys as well. Tracy Lords, Matthew Lillard from Scream, and Ernie Hudson.
Really?
Yeah, he was there. The guy, Mark Evans, I think is his name. You know what? Instead of trying to, maybe I just get the program out and read it off. So they had
Also the best part of the Crow.
Bill Mosley, Ernie Hudson. Sid Haig had to cancel. He got called back for some movie he was working on. He had to do some reshoots. Ray Wise, that's the guy I'm thinking of. He was in. I knew him from. He's played a bunch of different parts, but the one I knew him from was. All right, it was. I forget the name of it. Twin Peaks, and so Malcolm McDowell was there. He had the largest table. But Ralph Macchio had the largest line of people. So, I mean, I didn't pay to go also get autographs and stuff like that. But, that's the thing. It's only $60 for the whole weekend. But then you got to pay $20, $30, $40 to, stand in line, get your picture taken with people. They had some WWE stuff there, I think, or some wrestling stuff. I forget why.
I think I saw you posted on Facebook. I think they had Shawn Michaels showing up or something like that there.
Yeah, because some people got their pictures taken with that. It was pretty interesting. I guess perhaps because I was ill, I missed a lot of the weirdness. You know, people talked about how crazy and stuff that it gets. I didn't see any of that because Saturday night, by 10:30, I was so tired I could barely stay awake. So, but there was some decent cosplay. I got a few pictures of that, of people in cosplay. Not a whole lot. It was very small. It's the smallest con I've ever been to, so I kind of felt weird. But it was a pretty good time. It was down in Atlanta, Sheraton. I had to find my way to CVS to get some cold medicine. But
That was a true horror.
yeah. Well, I helped some homeless guy, and it was funny because we went to Popeyes. Instead of giving him money, he's like, "Well, how about buy me lunch?" I'm like, "Okay, I'm hungry too." We went to Popeyes Chicken, and I went, stereotypical Atlanta, right? I'm the only white guy in this entire place. It's a little after 11 o'clock, and so we're talking. I said to the young lady taking our order, I said, "Hey, how about this? I got an unemployed white guy buying a homeless black guy lunch," and she's kind of like, "You're not unemployed?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still looking." So, but yeah, so there's an update on that front. So, unlike Frank, I'm still on the podcast even though I'm not employed.
Well, there's also the whole thing about that other reality not letting him come through again. I don't know, something about his paperwork. So, I think they're taking that wall idea way too serious at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. But no, it was a good time. I wish I could have hung out with Nick a little bit more. But, I was pretty feeling like crap. And I pretty much just, I went to bed kind of early, and then he gave me 12 beers from different breweries in and around Atlanta to review. I've done some. One of them is up on my link, and apparently Richard knows someone who owns one of the breweries, or there's a family connection or something. But it was pretty interesting. I was surprised that they didn't talk about it on the main podcast about the Days of the Dead con. It was pretty nice. Some people in some really good spooky, kind of freaky cosplay. But it was a lot less cosplay than what I'm used to. We'll say that. But at least going to MatsuriCon. Comic Expo here in Cincinnati, some people cosplay, but not very many people do. So, but no, I chatted with some of the celebs, just kind of, just shooting the breeze when they were walking around, because quite often they'll take breaks and they'll walk around and see what some of the artists have done. There was one, the guy plays the boxer in Jason Takes Manhattan. I forget his name. He looks like the guy who plays Urkel, but I knew it wasn't Urkel. it was funny.
That would have been interesting to get to meet him. I would have been like, damn, what was it? What was you going through your mind when they said, okay, you're going to box Jason, and then you're just going to give up at one point, and he's just going to punch your head off? Imagine, like, what would be your thought process if somebody told you, okay, this is what you're going to do in this movie?
Yeah. And the guy who played Jason in that one, actually in a couple of them, he was there. He was a lot shorter than I thought. He may have been 5'10". I mean, he was a big guy. He was older, obviously, and he had some pretty good muscles, but he was a lot shorter than I thought he was.
Oh, Kane Hodder?
Yeah, I think is his name. He's like in his 50s, I think. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but yeah, it was good.
Oh man, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, is it like just a local event that they're gonna have there only in Atlanta? Are they gonna branch out? Do you know anything about that?
I thought they have more than one. I don't know if it says on this program, but if you check out their website, I know they have. I thought there was one in Raleigh.
Check it out right now. Actually,
daysofthedead.com. No, Charlotte. So the next one is in May. Dee Snider's going to be there. Now, I actually might pay to see him. C.J. Graham, who apparently also played Jason, Let's see if I can find Atlanta. So they had Shawn Michaels, Ernie Hudson, Martin Cove, Ralph Macchio, William Zabke, Bill Mosley. He had to cancel. Meg Foster was there. She was in They Live. I didn't even recognize her. She's gotten pretty old. Jonathan Breck, C. Thomas Howell. Yeah, Kane Howder.
Tony Todd was there too.
Kane Hodder. VC Dupree is that guy's name from who played the boxer. So, all right. Well, let's get wrapping up. You guys can check out their website, daysofthedead.com. I got the dogs are really starting to pester me, so let's get wrapped up and put this one to bed. So we did have a couple comments on episode 29. Tap and Die said Dan sounds like a riot. Hope to meet him one day. Also, LMP is right. The moment they legalize weed, you'll have these idiots ruin it for everyone else.
Thank you.
Caleb Webb had a question. I don't really. Kendo answered his question. I don't really understand what he was talking about. The BBC of the week is going to be. I don't know where my shoes are. Toby's really giving me the. So congratulations to Paige I still can't say her last name. Spiranac.
She's a golfer. That's all we need to know.
Beautiful blonde female golfer. I'll find some pictures of her. We'll figure out what in the world we're going to do for a thumbnail, and we'll go on with life. So
let that speak for itself.
Yes. Any other things you guys want to say as we close this out?
If you guys, since we brought up Ralph Macchio earlier, if you guys want to see some, I would say a pretty decent, good for a quick chuckle, video on YouTube, look up on YouTube the crimes of Daniel LaRusso, something like that, right? This is
Daniel
his
LaRusso?
name in the
LaRusso.
Yeah, Daniel LaRusso. Look it up. It basically is counting all his crimes and immoral acts throughout all three movies. Like it's 3 parts. It's 3 different videos counted each moment. Like it's literally up to nitpicking for like the lightest things, for like littering, and then to like serious things like assault and gambling. Just check it out. Like that one is really good.
All right. Okay, I've been your host, Brainmuffin, the unemployed lifting nerd. Justin, you got anything you want to say?
No, not right now.
All right. Well, thanks for filling in. And thanks for being here this week. We will see you all next week. And I don't have any bumper music, but I might find something. Good night.
The dog says good night too.
Yeah.